courtroom smelled of polished wood, stale coffee, and tension so thick it felt like it could settle over everyone's shoulders. Emily Carson sat at the defendant's table, knees pressed tightly together, hands clutching a small notepad. She was 17, slight and trembling, not from fear alone but from the injustice she had spent months trying to expose. Across from her, Officer Bradley Kane, a man with a badge and a smug grin, was leaning back in his chair, exuding an arrogance that made Emily's stomach twist. "Miss Carson," the prosecutor's voice boomed, cutting through the room. "You claim to have evidence that a federal officer tampered with court records. Do you understand the seriousness of accusing a man of law enforcement of criminal activity?" Emily swallowed hard, her throat tight, her eyes darted to the jury. 12 faces, indifferent or bored, none reflecting her reality. They had already been fed the story Kane wanted them to hear, that she was reckless, a meddling teen with delusions of grandeur. But Emily knew the truth. I saw him," she stammered, voice quivering but steady. He switched the flash drive before submitting it as evidence. The real one had— "Enough!" the prosecutor snapped, his face twisted with irritation. "This is not the time for accusations without proof." Emily's cheeks burned. The gavel slammed. Judge Meyer's eyes narrowed. "Order. Miss Carson, you will confine your testimony to verified facts, or you will face contempt of court." The room tittered. A jury member chuckled softly. The bailiff smirked. Emily felt the weight of mockery pressing down, suffocating her. She gritted her teeth, trying to summon courage she didn't feel. "I have proof," she said, her hand trembling as she reached into her coat pocket and held up a small black USB. The murmurs rose, curiosity flickering across the faces of some jurors. Before she could speak further, Kane sprang forward. "You think a teenager can manipulate evidence against me?" His hand shot out, and slap! Emily's cheek burned from the strike. The sound echoed like a gunshot, silencing the room. Shock froze her. She stumbled back, tears springing to her eyes. He hit me," she whispered, barely audible. The judge's face twisted in frustration, but not at Kane. "Miss Carson, remove yourself from the courtroom before I hold you in contempt." Humiliation and disbelief crushed Emily. She had been assaulted and then blamed, treated as if she were the wrongdoer. Kane's smirk widened, savoring the perceived victory. As the bailiff guided her out, Emily's hand instinctively went to her phone. One contact flashed, Mom. She hadn't called her mother in years, since the day Catherine Carson, a legendary CIA agent, vanished from her life, claiming it was for her safety. Her thumb hovered over the screen. She hesitated. Could her mother really help now? Before she could decide, a sharp click of heels echoed down the hall. A shadow fell across the floor, tall, deliberate, impossible to ignore. Catherine Carson appeared, silver-streaked hair framing a face of cold precision. She walked with a calm authority that immediately stilled the hallway. She produced a badge with a single motion, Special Agent, CIA. The courtroom doors swung open. Gasps erupted as she entered. Officer Kane froze, trying to maintain composure. This is not anymore," Catherine said, her voice cut through every whisper and doubt. "My daughter was assaulted in this federal courtroom. Cameras, witnesses, every detail is under review." Kane's face paled. The judge, flustered, tried to regain control. "And who?" Catherine's gaze pierced him. "The woman who trained many of the agents guarding this courthouse. And now you will answer for your actions." Emily's breath caught. Her mother, the woman she had barely seen, the distant figure of her childhood, now commanded the courtroom. The tables had turned in a heartbeat. Kane's smug arrogance evaporated. Catherine looked down at Emily, her voice soft, a whisper only her daughter could hear. "You stood for the truth. You did the right thing. Now let me finish this." The room was still, the air tense. Every spectator, every lawyer, every officer understood the tide had shifted. Kane had struck the wrong girl, and her mother was a storm unlike anything he had ever faced. Emily's eyes filled with tears, but this time they weren't just of pain. They were of awe, of relief, and of a dawning realization humiliation could be overturned and justice could arrive in the form of someone who never lost control. And the girl who was slapped would soon see the world bow to truth. The hallway outside the courtroom was suffocatingly quiet, the echoes of the gavel still reverberating in Emily's ears. She pressed her back against the cold marble wall, her cheek still burning from the slap, her heart pounding in her chest. She had felt powerless moments ago, humiliated in front of the judge, the jury, the prosecutor, and Officer Kane. And then, like a hurricane that materialized from nowhere, her mother had arrived. Catherine Carson, legendary CIA agent and the mother Emily had barely known, now stood before her, radiating authority. Her coat flowed behind her like a shadow, heels clicking sharply on the marble floor. The sight of her mother was surreal. Emily blinked, trying to reconcile the memories of a distant parent with a formidable figure who had just taken over the courtroom. "Emily," Catherine said softly, yet every word carried weight. "We're not done." Emily swallowed. "Mom, they hit me, they humiliated me, they almost—" Catherine cut her off with a single steady glance. "I know, and that's why I'm here. You were targeted because you had the audacity to see the truth, but they underestimated one thing. The people who fight for justice never act alone." Emily followed her mother down a narrow hallway leading to a secured conference room. The hallways were now filled with federal agents, their faces stern, scanning the courthouse for any threats. Catherine unlocked the door to the room, ushering Emily inside. Once the door clicked shut, the air inside was tense, alive with purpose. Catherine placed the small, encrypted tablet on the table. "This device has been monitoring the courthouse from multiple points," she said. "Cameras, entrances, even communications. Everything Kane did is recorded." Emily leaned forward. He tried to hide it. He attacked me so I wouldn't expose him." "Yes," Catherine confirmed. Her eyes, cold and precise, never left her daughter. "He was sloppy, but not careless. He worked for someone higher up, someone with influence, someone who manipulates cases for their own benefit. You were a threat to their operation." Emily's stomach twisted. "Who would want to hurt me?" Catherine's jaw tightened. "Someone who thought you could be silenced easily. They didn't expect courage or intellect from a 17-year-old, but that's why they failed." She tapped the tablet, and the screen lit up with images and video footage. There was Kane, slipping a flash drive into a locker, meeting in secret with a man whose face was obscured, exchanging envelopes, shaking hands with people who should never have been involved in evidence handling. Emily gasped. This is all proof." "Yes," Catherine said, "and this is just the beginning." Kane's slap wasn't just aggression, it was a warning. They want you scared, compliant, invisible. "But you're neither." Emily's fear began to morph into something new, determination. She had been humiliated, yes, but now she had a plan. And she wasn't alone. Catherine continued, explaining the depth of the conspiracy, courthouse officials who had been quietly complicit, evidence manipulation, even threats against other witnesses. Kane was a small piece, but the mastermind's reach was vast. "They control perception," Catherine said. "They make people doubt truth, question reality, and fear consequences. But they underestimated us. Now we have leverage, and leverage is power." Emily's pulse quickened. "What do we do?" "We gather more evidence," Catherine replied. "We understand their network, and then we act decisively. Timing, precision, and knowledge will be our allies." She paused. Her gaze softened briefly. "You've already shown bravery. Now we turn it into results." Emily nodded. She realized something profound. Her mother hadn't come to just protect her. She had come to teach her, to show her how to transform courage into action, humiliation into justice. Over the next hour, they combed through every document, video feed, and communication trace they could access. Every encrypted email revealed another thread in the web of corruption. Every video clip showed Kane's hand in careful manipulation. Emily absorbed every detail, feeling the power of knowledge settle into her bones. Finally, Catherine looked at her daughter. "Tomorrow we confront them. But tonight you must rest, observe, and prepare. Every word, every glance, every move counts. You're no longer just a victim, you are part of the process of exposing truth." Emily's fear had been replaced by a sense of responsibility. She had been slapped, humiliated, and nearly silenced, but now she understood that she had power, guidance, and purpose. With her mother by her side, she wasn't just surviving anymore, she was ready to fight. Catherine's hand brushed Emily's shoulder. "Tomorrow we change the game. Are you ready?" Emily straightened her back, chin high, heart racing with resolve. "I'm ready." The conference room, once sterile and impersonal, now felt like the command center for something much bigger. The slaps, the humiliation, the injustice, they were the sparks that would ignite the fire, and Emily knew, with Catherine guiding her, that fire would burn through every layer of corruption, exposing the truth for all to see. Emily had spent the night tossing and turning, her mind replaying every humiliating moment in the courtroom. The slap, Kane's smirk, the judge's dismissive gavel, it had all burned into her memory. But now, sitting across from her mother, she felt a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. Catherine Carson wasn't just a mother, she was a force of nature. And with her, by Emily's side, the impossible suddenly seemed attainable. The morning light filtered through the conference room blinds, casting narrow stripes across the polished table. Catherine tapped the tablet again, bringing up footage from the courthouse cameras. Kane appeared on screen, moving stealthily, exchanging envelopes with a man whose face remained deliberately hidden. Emily's stomach tightened. "Who is he?" she asked. Catherine's jaw tightened. "That, Emily, is the person you've been unwittingly up against. He's not just any corrupt official. He's the architect of a network that manipulates evidence, judges, and law enforcement to his advantage. Kane is just his pawn." Emily's eyes widened. He's been controlling everything. And they thought I'd be easy to scare?" "They did," Catherine said, her tone cutting. "But they didn't account for your courage. Or mine." She stood and began pacing. "This man is calculated. He watches, he manipulates, and he silences anyone who threatens exposure. The slap wasn't personal, it was strategic. He wanted to make you doubt yourself, to make others doubt you. But we now have leverage, footage, documents, and witness statements that no one can ignore." Emily leaned forward, absorbing every detail. "How do we stop him?" Catherine turned, eyes blazing. "First, we understand his moves, we map his network, every ally, every enabler, every weak link. Once we know the scope, we strike with precision. That's how we dismantle a puppet master without becoming his next target." The tablet flickered, displaying emails and schedules, security footage, and intercepted communications. Emily gasped as she saw the extent of the conspiracy, courthouse clerks meeting in secret, evidence being altered before filing, and phone records that traced suspicious calls between Kane and the shadowy man. The network was vast, dangerous, and relentless. "This," Emily whispered, "this is bigger than I thought. People could get hurt." Catherine nodded gravely. "Yes, and that's why timing is everything. We need to move carefully, but we cannot hesitate. The longer we wait, the more entrenched he becomes." Just then, an alert popped up on the tablet, another encrypted message from an anonymous source. Catherine's eyes narrowed. "Looks like someone wants to make a move. They're testing our response." She tapped a few buttons, pulling up video feeds from multiple entrances. A familiar figure emerged, Kane, meeting again with the mysterious man, this time handing over a small, sealed envelope. Emily's hands trembled. "Mom, is he dangerous?" Catherine's expression was unreadable. "Yes. But danger is predictable. He's methodical, not reckless. That means we can anticipate him, intercept him, and expose him." She paused, her gaze softening as she looked at Emily. "And you are the key. Not because you're reckless, but because they never expected you to fight back. Courage like yours is rare, and it's infectious." Emily drew in a deep breath. For the first time, fear was tempered with determination. She realized that being slapped, humiliated, and dismissed wasn't the end of her story. It was the beginning. Her mother's presence transformed her from a frightened teenager into an active participant in dismantling a criminal network. Catherine continued, outlining the plan: gather witnesses willing to testify, use the footage to identify every accomplice, and coordinate with federal agents to intercept Kane and his master before they could cover their tracks. Every step was meticulously calculated, every move choreographed. Emily listened, absorbing everything like a sponge. She could feel the transformation within her, the shame, the humiliation, the fear, each becoming fuel for resolve. She was no longer just a victim, she was a fighter, standing shoulder to shoulder with the most formidable woman she had ever known. Finally, Catherine closed the tablet. "Tomorrow, we confront them. Kane and his mastermind will learn that underestimating someone doesn't just backfire, it destroys them. And Emily, you will see firsthand that courage and truth can be more powerful than intimidation and corruption." Emily nodded, a surge of confidence rising within her. "I'm ready, Mom. Let's do this." Catherine smiled faintly, brushing a strand of hair from Emily's face. "Good. Rest tonight, observe everything tomorrow, and remember, power doesn't always come from fear. Sometimes it comes from being underestimated. The conference room, once a sterile, intimidating space, now felt like the command center for justice. Emily understood the stakes. Kane's network was vast, the mastermind was calculating, and danger was imminent. Yet, with her mother's guidance and her own growing courage, she was ready to face the storm. And when the confrontation came, the world would see that the girl who was slapped in court was not weak, but unstoppable. The courthouse was quiet that morning, a deceptive calm that made Emily's stomach twist with nerves. The trial room, once a place of humiliation and fear, now felt like a battlefield. Catherine Carson, standing tall beside her daughter, had orchestrated every detail with precision. Emily adjusted her blazer, the weight of the past days pressing on her shoulders, yet she stood taller than she had ever imagined. This was it, the moment where truth would finally confront lies and courage would demand justice. The doors opened and Officer Kane entered, escorted by federal agents. His usual confidence was gone, replaced by unease, his eyes darting around the room. He could sense the shift, the sudden awareness that he was no longer untouchable. He had underestimated the girl he had slapped, the teenager whose humiliation had once seemed so inconsequential. Judge Myers raised his gavel. "Court is in session." Emily's public defender, pale and flustered, whispered, "Are you sure about this?" Emily nodded subtly. "I'm ready." Catherine stepped forward, placing her hand briefly on Emily's shoulder. "Remember, Emily, stay calm. Speak only what is true. Let them see the evidence. They cannot hide from it." The prosecutor cleared his throat, glancing nervously at Catherine. "We are prepared, Your Honor." His confidence wavered. Emily walked to the witness stand. Every step felt monumental, as if the entire weight of her humiliation, anger, and courage was being carried in her stride. She took a deep breath and addressed the courtroom. "When I came here, I was slapped, humiliated, and dismissed. But today, I have evidence. Evidence that shows Officer Kane tampered with court records and that his actions were part of a larger conspiracy to manipulate justice." The courtroom murmured. Kane's eyes flickered, fear mingling with fury. Catherine tapped the tablet, sending video evidence to the courtroom monitors. Each clip was undeniable. Kane meeting with a shadowy man, passing envelopes, altering evidence, and intimidating witnesses. The jury leaned forward, captivated. Even the judge could not look away. "This man," Emily continued, pointing toward Kane, "thought he could silence me with fear. But courage cannot be bought, silenced, or erased. And the person orchestrating this network, who you have all trusted, will also be exposed today." At that moment, the courtroom doors swung open. Catherine strode in, her badge gleaming. "Special Agent Carson," she announced. "The person you see behind Kane is the mastermind of a corruption network that compromises courthouse integrity. Federal agents are prepared to take him into custody immediately." Gasps swept through the room. The mysterious figure, previously hidden, looked stunned, realizing his influence had crumbled in a matter of hours. His eyes darted between Kane, Emily, and Catherine. The threads he had manipulated, the whispers he had orchestrated, all unraveled under the relentless pressure of truth. Emily's hands trembled slightly, but she kept her voice steady. This network endangered countless cases, manipulated evidence, and tried to silence anyone who dared to challenge them. But now, all of you can see exactly what has been happening behind the scenes. Kane's face turned red. It's impossible," he shouted, but federal agents stepped forward. One placed handcuffs on him, the other moved toward the mastermind. Both men were escorted out swiftly, their power stripped away in front of the courtroom that had once mocked Emily. The jury sat stunned, the prosecutor speechless, and the judge rubbed his eyes in disbelief. For the first time, Emily realized how fragile arrogance could be when confronted by courage, evidence, and strategy. Catherine leaned close. "You did this, Emily. You stood up, you spoke the truth, and you never backed down. Courage is not just an act, it's a chain reaction. And today, it changed everything." Emily exhaled, relief washing over her. All the humiliation, the slap, the tears, it had led to this moment. Justice was no longer an abstract concept. It was real, tangible, and undeniable. Outside the courtroom, reporters swarmed, capturing the story of the girl who was slapped and the legendary CIA agent who had ensured justice was served. Cameras flashed, microphones recorded, and Emily found herself being hailed not as a victim, but as a hero. Catherine placed a hand on her shoulder again. "Remember this feeling," she said softly. "This is the result of truth, persistence, and courage. Never let anyone make you feel small or powerless. You have seen what happens when you refuse to back down. Emily looked around the courtroom one last time. The whispers of mockery were gone, replaced by awe and respect. She felt a strength she had never known, a certainty that even when faced with overwhelming odds, she could stand tall. Kane and the mastermind were gone, their schemes dismantled. Emily had been slapped, humiliated, and doubted, but she had also learned something invaluable. The truth, when wielded with courage and precision, could topple even the most formidable forces. As she walked out of the courtroom, side by side with her mother, Emily felt a new sense of identity. She was no longer the girl who had been powerless. She was a fighter, a truth-seeker, and the daughter of a woman who had shown her that courage, combined with strategy, could change the world. The courtroom doors closed behind them, but the echoes of justice, courage, and revelation would resonate far beyond those walls. And Emily knew with absolute certainty that nothing and no one could ever intimidate her again.